Leicester City 0, Manchester City 1. For the time being, Janusz, Manchester City back to the top of the table. They did it without Erling Haaland, but a world-class player scored a world-class goal, and that was the difference between the two sides.
It was a special goal, that's for sure. I don't know. I mean, if perfection exists, some will argue it doesn't. But for me, that was it, right? I don't know if you could place that any better. It was absolutely outstanding, of course, and sometimes you need special players to step up in a game that I thought really was easy for the most part. Yes, would have been more comfortable if City found another goal, not to have them, maybe a couple of nervous moments towards the end, of course. But in general, I think this game was won in a tunnel. Very, very disappointed with Leicester City and Brendan Rodgers. I just think it's unbelievable. Double-edged sword, of course, how to approach Manchester City, but. If you look at Leicester, they have players. They can play football. This is not a League 3 side where, you have to defend with 9 or 10, 25 yards away from your own goal. So made it easy for Manchester City.
In defense of Leicester, you go toe-to-toe with Manchester City. You try and beat them at playing football. They came up with a game plan to spoil, and they only lost by a 0-0. It's still no points, but are you being a little harsh on Leicester because they kept it within touching distance and then they had their goal 10 minutes to go when there were spaces?
Yeah, if they saw it through, it just, the means justify the end, I suppose, but it doesn't here. I just think that they again, Leicester City are a quality side. The result don't bear that, but obviously they're on the way up. They have zero worries. They are playing at home here. So I just thought that you could maybe ask a little bit more questions, other than the first half, that Harvey Barnes chance, which was a very, very good counter, started, I think, in the back by Wout Faes. Really not much to speak of. Of course, there was that chance from Yuri Tielemans. That volley was absolutely unbelievable. As good as that goal was from Kevin De Bruyne, if he puts away that volley, that to me would have been even better goal than the one from Kevin De Bruyne. But for Leicester City, come on, look, you've got to do better. I've been in those situations. I know in the end, if they got a result, then I don't think we're having the same conversation. But because they didn't, you have to talk about that. This was dying a slow death, and in the end, we knew what the result was going to be. And it happened.
We were all waiting on the team sheet. Erling Haaland starts. Erling Haaland isn't involved at all. It was the latter. No Erling Haaland. Julian Alvarez started up top. City have got a style playing with Haaland. What kind of style did they have playing without him?
One that we've seen in the past. As I've said before, and I'll repeat this again, if they didn't have Erling Haaland this season, they would most likely win the Premier League anyway. I mean, he makes it a little bit easier because when you're in such form and you have such momentum that every ball you touch is a goal, then you start looking at this game, right? And you say, oh my God, yeah, Erling Haaland wasn't there. They've struggled. Just one goal win. I don't know necessarily if I look at it. For me, Manchester City have a plan A, B, C, and maybe even D, right? Plan D being the brilliance of an individual like De Bruyne, but it could have been Bernardo Silva, could have been anybody. So, I think it was different, but they've done it. They know how to do it, and they have the quality. Mark, I no longer look what the lineup is for Manchester City because they're that good, right? It doesn't almost matter to me who plays where. When I see the lineup without it being tactical, it makes no difference because you've seen everybody play everywhere, and they do that well. So what's the difference?
I often think Manchester City have got some unsung heroes. Haaland, De Bruyne, they got all the plaudits, they got all the praise, rightly so. They're world-class players. But Rodri, for me, is someone that makes them tick. And someone else is someone you put a tweet out about, Bernardo Silva. He just goes about his business in a super way, quietly, efficiently, but he's a spectacular player, isn't he?
Yes, Rodri was, for me, the best Manchester City player in the game. If you look at statistically, I've said it here before. I mean, he's the best player in his position in the Premier League, in Europe, perhaps. I can't think of anybody else. We've talked about Bruno Guimaraes, another player that I really like for Newcastle, but let's give him time. He's still not there just yet. He's superb. Bernardo Silva, I just think that, don't hide your best assets. And I think playing wide, we've seen him play wonderfully in that position. But I still think in this particular game, when it's so tight, it's so difficult to break down this wall of really 9 players for the most part, 5 in the back, 4 in the midfield, and Vardy still helping out. I think to solve that, you need his quality on the ball. You need the penetrating stuff where he involves 1 or 2 players, plays 1 or 2, and maybe picks out a pass or gets on the end of it. And I think today in that wide position, we didn't see enough of him. So I think I would have changed that maybe a little bit earlier. Well, I mean, I would have changed that in general and put him in the midfield because I think he gets the ball off the center backs and just has more freedom. So you're quite right to pick out those 2, but Rodri better than Bernardo Silva today.
Oh, without a doubt. But with regards to Bernardo Silva, it's just because you put a tweet out saying he should move more central. And if they did that, who would be the player to not play central and kind of play wide? Because we saw Phil Foden coming on. Riyad Mahrez wasn't involved today from the start. They've got plenty of options, but if you're moving Bernardo Silva more central, where De Bruyne plays a lot of the stuff, where Rodri's been playing in a lot of the games as well, what are you doing with Bernardo Silva so that it's not too congested and you've still got talent out wide?
I just think it's a one-off. It's not that one played better than the other, but I think I would have maybe changed. Look, like Gundogan could go out, put Bernardo Silva alongside Rodri and De Bruyne there, and then you have an option of bringing Foden out wide or Mahrez, right? So it was just a tweak for this particular game and the tactics that Brendan Rodgers and Leicester City have brought. I just felt that he needed to be more central, and Gundogan is more of a rhythm player where where Bernardo Silva can do that as well. But I think he's got that little bit of a quickness, cleverness that can break this down because it's not easy. I mean, anyway, for me, Manchester City, that was an easy game. I think Pep Guardiola, if he was honest, would say, yeah, I expected a lot more from a side like Leicester City with this sort of talent that can and should ask more questions.
It's one of those, Janusz, like 38-game season. You're going to get games like that. You're going to have a lot of possession. There might be some nervy moments, but there'll not be a DVD released or a special edition of Leicester 0, Manchester City 1. Champions go to places. I'm not saying they weren't at their best today. They were fine. They found a way. They didn't score more than 1, but that's what it's about, isn't it? Because games are coming thick and fast.
Good enough. I mean, as you can obviously say, no criticism from me. I mean, if you want to 1 or 2 things, you can. 3 points, Sevilla at home, that's no worry. So you can rotate however you like. And then I think Fulham at home as well. So I think you look at Manchester City ahead of Christmas, there probably will be where we all thought they may be anyway, without losing too much in terms of, the energy from the players and all of that. So they're massaging the season perfectly at the moment.
Another clean sheet, another 3 points. Manchester City continue rolling along.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.